Hello, everyone. Welcome to Barca News. It is June 11th, 2025, and we now know the release dates for Barcelona's next season kits. Also, the club have revised Joan Garcia's contract, and I'm going to tell you what they changed. And finally, Ivan Perisic has been linked to Barcelona, and we're going to discuss whether these links are real or not. We have a lot to discuss, so let's begin. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the channel. My name is Mo. This is the Barca News Live podcast, which is on every Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, where not only we discuss Barcelona news, but where I also get to interact with you lovely people in the chat section by reading your comments, answering your questions, and getting that discussion going. For those of you who be watching when the podcast ends, I will be putting timestamps in the description, chapters in the timeline, in case you do want to skip through the discussion and get straight into the news. Having said all that, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment. All this helps the channel continue to grow. If you're looking for any Barcelona jerseys or merchandise, make sure it's the Goal Kits, Kickback, or Fanatics. You have plenty of options there. If you're looking to place any sports bets, not just on Barcelona match, but on any sporting event all around the world, make sure you hit the Bet Us. All links are in the description. You click on them, you get access to some pretty cool deals and offers, of course, courtesy of Barca News. Now, don't forget, starting this Saturday, there will be a weekly podcast every Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which it will be exclusive to the channel members only, where it's going to be more of an informal format where you guys decide what we talk about. Barcelona, other clubs, other leagues, other sports, whatever you guys want, we'll talk about it. And again, strictly for channel members. So if you're already a channel member, don't worry about it. You'll have access. If you're not yet, make sure you become one. If you don't want to miss those podcasts, you can become one by going to the home tab. And then where the subscribe button is, there's a button that says join. You click on it, and that's how you become a channel member. All right, let's begin with the news because, as always, the first segment of this podcast is composed of several bits of news all combined together for the sake of brevity. And the first segment of news, let's start with next season kits. Next season kits, because we now know the release dates for the next season kits to 2025, 2026. Guys, where does time go? We're already in 2025. We're actually halfway through 2025. That's absolutely insane. But anyways, I don't want to get distracted. But we already know the dates for the launch of the kits. As you can see here in the picture on the left, of course, will be the home kit, which I personally hate. I mean, this whole Blaugrana bars kind of blending together like this modern twist that Nike has done. I'm not a fan, but that's just my opinion. You guys let me know. Do you like the home kit? Yes, no. Let me know in the chat section or in the comment section if you're watching this when it ends. And of course, on the right side will be the second kit. I mistakenly called it the third kit the other day, but that's actually going to be the away kit. The third kit is going to be salmon color. I showed it before in previous videos. So the home kit is the one on the left. The away kit, or the second kit, will be the one on the right, which is, of course, the Black Mamba edition, which is in honor of the late Kobe Bryant. Now, the release date for the home kit is expected to be in the first week of July. So we're only 3 weeks away. We don't have an exact date yet, but they're saying around maybe the 3rd or the 4th of July, which is when the home kit will be unveiled. Now, as far as going on sale, it will be on July 7th. So July 7th, it will be available to be purchased globally, and it will be unveiled on July 3rd or 4th. So those are the dates for the home kit. Remember, the home kit. Now, the away kit, or the Black Mamba edition kit, the Kobe Bryant homage kit, will be unveiled on July 27th during the Asia preseason tour. As you know, the preseason starts on July 13th. That's when the players will report to medical tests and then training. And then Barcelona, once they're done training, they're going to have a home match, a match, whether it's in Morocco, Casablanca, Morocco, I should say, or whether against some local team or whether within the team, but they're going to have a match. Then eventually when they're done training, they're going to fly to Asia. They're going to play 2 matches in Korea, 1 match in Japan. The match in Japan will be against Vissel Kobe, which is Andres Iniesta's former team. And that's when the second or the away kit will be unveiled. The Kobe Bryant kit. That's when it's going to be unveiled against Vissel Kobe on July 27th. So the team will don the away kit, the Kobe Bryant kit, on July 27th against Vissel Kobe in Japan. And I honestly am very, very excited for the away kit. Again, I'm not a big a fan of the home kit. In fact, the last home kit I bought was I think it was the 2019 season, if I'm not mistaken. That's the last home kit I bought. Every kit from then has been an away kit. Oh, actually, no, I'm lying. I bought the first season of Xabi's home kit. But anyways, the point is I've mostly been buying away kits for the last 6 or 7 years because home kits have been very disappointing. Of course, this past season, the split, the two colors, that was of course a classic because it is the anniversary kit. But overall, home kits have been a little bit disappointing for me. But I'm very, very excited for the Kobe kit, or the Kobe Bryant kit. So let me know you guys' thoughts. What do you like? The home kit, the away kit, the third kit, which is going to be the salmon color. Let me know in the chat section or in the comment section if you're watching this when it ends. Now, more news, because Transfer Market has updated the values of the players after the season concluded, the 2024-2025 season concluded. And guess what? Lamine Yamal is now the most valuable player in the world at only 17 years old. Ladies and gentlemen, Lamine Yamal at 17 years old is the most valuable player. Here are the values of the most valuable players. Of course, Lamine Yamal in number 1 with 200 million euros. Lamine Yamal is worth right now 200 million euros. Aren't you thankful that we have the greatest academy in the world, La Masia? Because right now, if we wanted to sign Lamine Yamal, we would have to fork out at least 200 million. That's at least, because remember, a lot of clubs end up selling players above their market value. So if Lamine Yamal's market value is 200 mil, some other club would probably want to sell the player for, I don't know, 250 maybe. And if we can't even afford 85 million for Luis Diaz, which we shouldn't, by the way, he's not worth 85 million. But if we can't even afford 85 for Luis Diaz, there's no way in hell we would ever be able to afford 250 for Lamine Yamal. So thank God we have the greatest academy in the world that has produced Lamine Yamal for nothing. He cost us €0 instead of having to go and sign him for 200 and 250 million euros. In second place is Jude Bellingham with 180 million euros. Of course, Jude Bellingham was the highest rated or most valuable player in the world. So Lamine Yamal surpassing Jude Bellingham. Honestly, I don't know why he's in second place, but whatever. Erling Haaland in 180 million euros. His value has dropped after, a very disappointing season by Manchester City. Kylian Mbappe for 180 million euros, also tied for the same value. I would honestly put Mbappe over Jude Bellingham. Vinicius Jr., he used to be the most valuable player at 200 million euros. His value dropped to 170 million euros because people realize, Vinicius is the greatest player when it comes to crying. But unfortunately, crying is not really part of the sport. So people were like, all right, well, his greatest skill, unfortunately, cannot count for football. So therefore, his value went down to 170. Bukayo Saka, and then Pedri with 140 million euros. And this is a strange one for me, because for me, and I don't know if I'm being biased because I'm a Barcelona fan, but for me, Pedri is 10 times more valuable than Jude Bellingham. Now, I'm not saying that Pedri should be worth 180 million. He doesn't have to be, but he should definitely not be worth less than Jude Bellingham. I don't know what you guys think. Let me know your thoughts in the chat section or in the comment section when you're watching this when it's over. And then we have Florian Wirtz, Jamal Musiala, Federico Valverde, Cole Palmer, Declan Rice, Isaac, Rodri, Julian Alvarez, Michel Olise. The list goes on and on. And then, of course, we have Coutinho, whose value has shot up. Coutinho's value at the beginning of the season was 60 million euros. 60 million euros. And now it's valued 90 million euros, so an increase of 30 million euros after the spectacular season that Coutinho has had, and of course, well deservedly so. So, ladies and gentlemen, Lamine Yamal, a child, 17 years old, is the most valuable player in the world. And let's not forget, he is nowhere close to how good he could be. Let's not forget that. So if he's worth 200 million euros now, can you imagine what he's going to be worth once he actually reaches his prime, his best level? Because he's nowhere close to that. Absolute insanity. All right, more news. And this is still in regards to Lamine Yamal because, ladies and gentlemen, they have issued a punishment. Because as you might recall, Lamine Yamal suffered some racial slurs, not just him. It was Rafinha, Ansu Fati, Alejandro Balde, pretty much all the black players of Barcelona when they were at the Santiago Bernabeu during that El Clásico match where Barcelona scored 0-4 against Real Madrid. There were a lot of racial attacks against those players after almost, what has it been? Since October, that's what? 8 months? After 8 months investigation, they have punished one guy. One guy has been punished. It's a minor. It's a kid that has been punished. And his punishment is that he cannot go to the stadium, any stadium in La Liga for a whole year. And he has to do 30 hours of kind of like some kind of classes, social behavior classes, whatever it may be. Now, don't get me wrong. That kid deserves it, especially since he's a minor. Like, why is a minor filled with so much hate? Of course, we have to look at the parents. But the crazy thing is that look at this picture. These are everyone that insulted Lamine Yamal. Okay. And all these people, you're telling me Real Madrid could only identify one person who was a minor out of all these people? I mean, ladies and gentlemen, we have 4K cameras, video cameras, all different angles. You can zoom in, zoom out, slow motion, speed it up, cameras, microphones. This is 2025. And you're telling me out of all these people who insulted these players, you could only identify one guy who happened to be a minor? What about this guy? I mean, you could clearly say what he says. It's in Spanish, but it's pretty much calling Lamine Yamal the N-word. Now, negro is not the N-word in Spanish. It just means black. But when you add the rest of the sentence, that is the equivalent of the N-word. So this guy's calling Lamine Yamal the N-word and calling him a monkey. And you tell me you cannot identify this piece of shit? Seriously? You could only identify a minor? You have all this footage, all these videos, pictures of everybody who insulted the Barcelona players, and you can only identify one. Now, when that happened to Vinicius, they shut down the entire section of a stadium of Valencia. Valencia had to play without fans, without supporters. But it's Real Madrid, so let's just scapegoat somebody. Oh, hey, there's a kid. Fuck it. Fuck that kid. Let's blame it on him. Everybody else, don't worry. Keep insulting players. Keep using racial slurs. It's Real Madrid. We are untouchable. Bravo La Liga and bravo Real Madrid on your whole, respect campaign, anti-racial campaign, equality campaign. You're doing an absolutely great job. Now, the last bit of news of this segment is a news that we shall call, the most ridiculous things to happen. Now, we've talked about El Chiringuito before on this channel. El Chiringuito is a sports program in Spain. And I say program because it's more of a circus. It's a mouthpiece. It really is a mouthpiece of Florentino Perez. It's a propaganda show. It's not really a football show that you think of where it's just people talking about football, discussing football, different players, different teams. It's a mouthpiece of Florentino Perez. Pretty much the objective of that show, El Chiringuito, is everything Real Madrid does is good. Everything Barcelona does is bad. That's pretty much, that sums up the whole program. It's a bunch of clowns saying stupid shit. And we've talked about it before in the channel. But they've outdone themselves because Guti, who's a former Real Madrid player, was a guest on the show. And he had some pretty strong statements criticizing Lamine Yamal. Now, he was criticizing Lamine Yamal because during the pre-match press conference for the Nations League final between Spain and Portugal, Lamine Yamal showed up to the press conference with a hat. He was wearing a hat. He was wearing it backwards. And Guti did not like that. He did not like that Lamine Yamal wore a hat to a press conference. Like, come on, man. Can you believe that? He wore a hat to a press conference. Jesus. Oh my God. Call the police. But anyways, this is what Guti had to say. I don't know if this is the first time, remember, first time I've seen a guy with the cap backwards. I don't like that because he's with the Spanish national team. When he goes to Ibiza or wherever he wants, he can do it, but not with the Spanish national team at a press conference. I don't like it. It's not Lamine's fault. He ultimately does what he wants. It's the fault of him being there and having to tell it's the fault of the people being there and having to tell him, hey, not with a cap on in a press conference with the Spanish national team. So Guti is so upset. He is so offended. My God, Lamine Yamal wearing a cap to a press conference. That is so insulting. That is so disrespectful. And of course, the internet responded. Now, let's look at the internet's responses because this is pretty hilarious. And I'm going to make it bigger so you can enjoy it with me. But here is Cristiano Ronaldo wearing a cap, wearing it backwards at the FIFA Ballon d'Or. Nobody batted an eye. Not El Chiringuito, not Pedrol, who leads the show, not Guti. Nobody gave two shits that Ronaldo was wearing a backward cap to the FIFA Ballon d'Or. But it's Lamine Yamal. Disrespectful, right? Let's continue. Vinicius Jr. There he is, doing a press conference with a backward hat. Nobody batted an eye, right? But if it's Lamine Yamal, oh my God, it's so disrespectful, guys. How could he? Kylian Mbappe this past season. There he is with a cap during a press conference. Nobody batted an eye. Now, here's the best part, ladies and gentlemen. Here is the best part. Now remember, Guti said he's never seen anything like this. He's never seen a player wear a cap during a press conference, right? That's what he said. You guys just read his statements. That is Guti wearing a fucking hat at a press conference. But according to him, he's never seen anything like that. The disrespect is so huge that Lamine wore a hat to a press conference that he'd never seen anything like that. Well, I guess there was no mirrors available that day because otherwise Guti would have seen himself wearing a hat to a press conference. Ladies and gentlemen, this is next level hypocrisy. Next level hypocrisy. This is like me making a video criticizing YouTubers for cursing, something like that. When I curse here every other day or every other video. Like, are you fucking kidding me? This guy criticizing Lamine for wearing a hat during a press conference when he did it himself. El Chiringuito, ladies and gentlemen. The ultimate source of laughter in the Real Madrid world. If you want to laugh, if you're having a bad day, if you feel like, oh my God, life is not going my way, or if you're feeling like, oh my God, I feel stupid, I don't know, things are not going well, maybe I'm dumb, maybe I'm not intelligent enough, watch El Chiringuito. And trust me, by the end of that episode, you're going to feel like freaking Einstein. You're going to feel like a genius because it's an absolute shit show and a circus. But anyway, so let's do the comment section. And then we are going to talk about Joan Garcia because, ladies and gentlemen, Barcelona have revised his contract. And I'm going to tell you what they did. And OZ Blaz, my friend, becoming a member. Thank you so much. As a new member, you will now have access to many perks. They're listed on the membership tier that you joined. And of course, more importantly, you're now going to be available. You'll have access, not available. You'll have access to the weekly podcast that I will be doing every Saturday, which, by the way, I'm super, super, super excited for. That's kind of like how I envisioned the channel to begin with when I first started the channel. Can't envision just me hanging out with some people, just like, hey, man, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Just talking about football, players, or not just football, like anything, other sports, life things. But, and this is not a bad thing. Of course, I'm very, very thankful for this. But of course, as the channel grew, it became more difficult to do that, right? Because there's so many comments coming in, so many people watching, and it's like, so I think to be able to revert back to what I initially envisioned the channel it's pretty, pretty cool. It's very special. So I'm very, very excited. So thank you for becoming a member. And Shin, my man, oh my God, Shin, I don't even have words anymore to thank you, because I could go through the whole dictionary, look up every synonym of thank you, and it would not be enough, because you are so incredibly generous. You are such a huge supporter of the channel. But Shin says, sup, my brother? Personally, I love the home kit. I've always been a fan of gradient art. I also like the meaning behind it being a transition period for Barca with a new Camp Nou and things. See you Saturday. That's actually a great point. I had not thought about that. So thank you for bringing that up with the whole transition thing. That's actually a good point, because yeah, Barcelona right now is in a huge, huge transition period in its history. I mean, there's the Camp Nou, as you mentioned. We're going from the old Camp Nou that was since 1957, hadn't really been updated. I mean, yeah, we added a third ring, but so that's new stadium. We have a new coach. We have a new project with lots of youngsters. We have a new star. It's no longer Messi and company. Now it's Lamine and company. And yeah, this is truly a new era in Barcelona. New coach, new team, new stadium. And, we're also overall just a new chapter, right? We went from those very, very dark years of mismanagement, of spending the club's money, of terrible signings, of failure after failure after failure in the Champions League or in La Liga, of being just an embarrassment. And now we really are in a transitional time. We're entering a new chapter, or we are starting a new chapter. And I think that's a great, great point. Thank you for pointing that out. I did not look at it that way. But I'm still going to buy that Kobe jersey. I have to get that Kobe jersey. Morgan says, hey, Mo, stayed up to hear all Barca newest news. I think you should get a job at Barca, seeing as you are always on point. And please don't forget to hit the like. I've seen your videos go viral. Thank you, my friend. I really, really appreciate your words. I would love to work for Barcelona. Of course, I'm here in New York, so that would be very, very difficult. But hey, Barca, if anyone from Barca is watching, I would love to work for Barca. Please hire me. I have no problem quitting my job as a lawyer and working for Barca. I think it will be a lot more fun than being a lawyer. McCoy says, Mo, I really hope this is only Perisic offering himself to Barca and not Barca looking to bring him in. That's insane. What are we doing here? As Brits would say, bloody hell. That's a terrible British accent. I'm going to talk about Perisic. So, though I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I am going to talk about Perisic. Not the Gamer says, Yo, Mo, how are you, my brother? Thoughts on Real Betis signing all the former Barca players and any people they should sign from the current squad? I mean, Real Betis have a very similar style of play like Barcelona, right? They focus on possession, attack. They're more attack-minded club. So, of course, Barca players or former Barca players or players who came up through the Barca Academy are going to be a better fit, right? For a team like Real Betis than, let's say, I don't know, a team like Atletico Madrid, for example, or Getafe, even though those teams do have former Barcelona players. But a player that comes up to the Barca Academy is a better fit for a team like Real Betis because they have a more similar style to us. So it's not unheard of, or it's not out of the ordinary. And plus, that goes to show that our academy is such a great academy that we produce so much talent that is way too much than we would need on our first team. So we actually end up even exporting to other clubs in La Liga and to other clubs around Europe, because that's how much talent we produce. And that's a blessing. That's a blessing, because usually clubs with great academies are usually selling clubs, right? You don't see big clubs with great academies that produce as much talent. Don't get me wrong. Still, other academies still produce talent, like Real Madrid with Asensio. I don't know, Man U with with Rashford. Like all big clubs still have good academies that produce good talent here and there. But Barcelona, the amount of talent that Barcelona's academy produces is very, very huge compared to other big clubs. Because usually clubs who produce a lot of talent from their academies are usually smaller clubs who are in the business of selling. They're in the business of signing young up-and-coming players, developing them, and then selling them. That's their business. But to have a club like Barcelona with financial muscle to be able to sign big players before this whole mess that we're in, but also have an academy that can also produce talent, that's unheard of, right? Because big clubs usually have the financial muscle to sign players, so they don't have to produce players. And then smaller clubs, they can produce players because they don't have the financial muscle to sign players. Barcelona can do both. Not right now because we're going through a financial hole, financial bad time, but still, right? We're a club that can do both. And that's pretty unheard of, and that's pretty amazing. And then this is just one of the million reasons what makes FC Barcelona such a special club. And Zach Urban says, hey, Mo, is it true Barca officially ruled out Nico today and are focusing on Diaz? I think we're going to make a big mistake. No. Look, nothing has changed, right? And I know you're probably seeing a million articles and posts on Twitter and social media. Nothing has changed. It all remains the same. The number one priority is Luis Diaz for Deco. But we can't afford him. Barcelona are not going to spend 85 million euros on Luis Diaz. We don't have the money to do it. So the only way Barcelona would sign Luis Diaz is if Liverpool reduces their asking price, which right now Liverpool are not looking like they're going to do it. Okay. It doesn't mean that the Luis Diaz signing is impossible. I don't know. In a month, maybe the negotiations fall apart and Liverpool said, you know what, F you, Luis Diaz, we're going to sell you. We want 60. I don't know. Right. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but right now it's highly improbable. He's still the number one option, but Barcelona cannot afford the 85 million euros that Liverpool want. Nico Williams is still a pretty valid choice for Barcelona, and I think Barcelona know it. But Barcelona are not going to make any moves for Nico unless Nico makes the first step, unless Nico comes out and says, I'm done with Athletic Club. I want to go to Barca. Why? Because Barcelona were pretty open about going after Nico last summer. They made it pretty clear. Nico's the guy. We want Nico, and he didn't come. So Barcelona felt like they were embarrassed in the media, and therefore now they're not going to do anything unless Nico comes out and says, hey, guys, I'm going to Barca, and then Barca will be like, all right, fine. Right? That's how it is. Nothing has been ruled out. Nothing has been ruled in. That's how it's been, and that's how it continues to be. And we have another donation from Edwin, who says, hey, Mo, let's not forget Garcia's market value, 80 million, most valuable defender in the world. Good point. Good point. I was going to bring this up actually in the next video because I want to kind of like keep it on Lamine because I was going to talk about the punishment of Real Madrid fan and about Guti's retarded statements. But yes, good point. Yes, Pau Garcia is officially the most valuable defender in the world at 18 years old. 18 years old. And people try to compare Asensio to him. I swear to God, Real Madrid fans have such an inferiority complex that they just cannot stand that Barcelona always produces such great talent that they always have to find anyone to compare to Barcelona. Like, for example, when they compare Güler to Lamine Yamal. Güler to Lamine Yamal. Güler, out of anyone. Güler to Lamine Yamal. That's how stupid these fans are. They want to compare Güler to Lamine Yamal. Can you imagine the level of stupidity to try to compare Güler? Güler, guys. I get the Ronaldo Messi comparison. I still think that comparison should have never existed because Messi is on another level. But I get that, okay? But Güler, they tried to compare Güler to Lamine Yamal. God bless them. Anyways, let's get back to the news because we do have to talk about Joan Garcia, Barcelona's latest signing, because it's been revealed that the club had to revise his contract prior to the player's arrival. Now, as I reported in yesterday's video, Joan Garcia's attorney was seen leaving the offices, the Barcelona offices, and that's because everything has been finalized. You know, the agreement had been reached, I think it was last week or the week before. The contract had been drafted, the final draft, and now all the contracts have been signed. Everything's done. Everything's finalized. Joan Garcia is a Barca player until, of course, Barcelona pay the release clause, which the club are planning to do in the upcoming days. Now, the new news is that originally the draft that Barcelona had agreed to with Joan Garcia was that the former Espanyol goalkeeper, well, technically he still is an Espanyol goalkeeper, but Joan Garcia had agreed to sign for 5 years. That was the draft of the contract that they had agreed to. But once they finalized the contract, they ended up upping it to 6 years. So now Joan Garcia is not going to sign for 5 years until 2030. He's going to sign for 6 years until 2031. Now, you might ask, Mo, why this extra year? Well, it has to do with financial fair play rules. Okay. The reason why Barcelona added another year is because they're going to divide the player's salary over 5 years rather than over 6 years rather than 5. So by stretching the contract, you're stretching the salary over more years, which gives Barcelona more financial fair play room to maneuver. Now, under La Liga rules, you have to amortize a player over 5 years. Okay. What does amortization mean? Okay. If Joan Garcia costs us 25 mil, that's his release clause, then you divide the 25 mil over 5 years. That means that player is costing you 5 million euros per year, right? 25 divided by 5 is 5. So the amortization cost of Joan Garcia is 5 million per year. Let's say his salary is also 5 million. So the cost of that player on your wage bill every year is not 5 million, even though his salary is 5 million. It's 10 million. 5 million for his salary and 5 million for his amortization. Okay. Now, by stretching the contract out to 6 years, what you could do is reduce his salary those first few years. Let's say you reduce it to 3. So now you're paying him 3 in salary and 5 in amortization. You're only paying 8 on your wage bill every year for the first 5 years instead of 10. And then the 6th year, where you don't have to pay his amortization because he's already been amortized, then you can pay him his full salary, or what you owe him for that year plus what you owed him for the first 5 years that you didn't pay him. I hope that was clear enough. I know it's a little bit convoluted, but that's why Barcelona ended up opting to sign Joan Garcia for 6 years over 5, so they can stretch his salary over more years and therefore have more financial fair play room to maneuver. They're saying that's the same reason why Lamine Yamal has signed for 6 years, also to stretch out his salary over more years. Now, since we are on the topic of Joan Garcia, of course, we do have to talk about Marc ter Stegen, because as you know, Barcelona have decided Joan Garcia will be number 1, Szczesny will be number 2, ter Stegen will be leaving the club. But what's the problem is that so far ter Stegen has made 2 statements publicly, both times saying, I'm not leaving, I have a contract with Barcelona. And now we found out that he is actually living up to his words. Why? Because as you know, several European clubs have shown interest in Marc ter Stegen. AC Milan, Manchester United, Chelsea are kind of like, we'll see what happens. But I mean, it's Chelsea. At this point, they're scouting me, and now I'm not even a professional player. And it's been revealed that ter Stegen's agents have been denying every offer they get. So any club that calls ter Stegen's agent like, hey, you interested? The agents are pretty much, nope, we have a contract. We're staying in Barcelona. Bye. Bam. So it looks like this drama will be dragging on. Of course, ter Stegen right now is on vacation. He just finished his international duty with Germany, and he is refusing to come back to, cut his vacation early, come back to Barcelona to meet with Deco and Flick. For now, he's going to finish his vacation. When his vacation is done, he'll meet with the club. But looks like we're in for a long, prolonged saga. And this is what I was talking about last video. I said Barcelona should have handled this better, because look at what's happening. Had Barcelona handled this better, they would have had a better shot of convincing Marc to leave. But you don't tell the player anything. He has to find out from the media that he's being pushed out. Of course, he's going to be pissed. It's not the way to handle things. Again, and if you're trying to push a player out, would you rather push a player who's happy with you rather than a player who's pissed off at you? It's just common sense. Again, if you don't care about respect, oh, we should respect him because he's been 11 years. People say he's a fraud, blah, 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 blah. Okay, fine. Fuck Ter Stegen, all right? For the sake of argument. At least do it because it's the more sensible thing. You know, I, for example, as a lawyer, I negotiate with other lawyers all the time to settle cases, okay? And I work with people, or I've worked with people who get super aggressive with the other counsels. They yell at them, they're rude to them. And it's like, well, what are you doing? What's the point of that? Yeah, he's an idiot. Okay, I agree, he's an idiot. But that's not going to get you anywhere because you pissed that guy off. Why is he going to want to work with you? Why is he going to, you know, if he has authority, let's say, to settle a case for $200,000, he's going to offer you 150. And he has no incentive to increase it to 200 because you're an asshole to him. So, of course, he's not going to want to increase it. But if you're nice to him, he's going to want to work with you. It's the same concept here. You don't care about Ter Stegen. You think he's a statue. You think he sucks. Worst goalkeeper ever. Push him out. Okay, fine. But at least handle it the right way because it's easier to deal with someone who has a good relationship with you rather than someone you just pissed off. Common fucking sense, which these days is highly, highly uncommon. All right, let's do the comment section. Good fella with the donation says, bro, can you do one video/stream without mentioning Real Madrid? No, actually, I hardly mention Real Madrid. But when you have to mention it, you have to mention it. I'm not mentioning Real Madrid out of, just because I'm crazy. I'm mentioning Real Madrid because they mentioned Lamine Yamal. And guess where Lamine Yamal plays? Barcelona. So what does that mean? That means that this news affects Barcelona. And guess what this channel is called? Barca News. So if Real Madrid do something that affects Barcelona, and I, as a channel called Barca News, cover Barcelona, then of course I have to cover that news because why? Because it affects Barcelona, which is something that I cover. I hope that helps. And let's look at the other donation because El Rey Vélez says, hello, Mo. Love the channel. Greetings from Alaska. Ooh, Alaska. Will Joan Garcia be first choice goalkeeper? Well, first of all, thank you, my friend, for the donation. Second of all, yes, Joan Garcia will be the first goalkeeper with Szczesny being second. Sorry, not Ter Stegen. And then Ter Stegen, they're going to try to get rid of him. And then Iñaki Peña, technically, they're going to try to get rid of too. And even though Szczesny's going to be our second goalkeeper, he still hasn't signed the contract renewal. So technically, he's not a Barcelona player right now. Right now, it's a hot mess. Right now, the only thing for sure is that, okay, we signed Joan Garcia. The other three goalkeepers, their futures are up in the air, right? We're trying to push Iñaki, but he still hasn't signed with anyone. We're trying to push Ter Stegen, but he's saying, no, I'm staying. And supposedly, Szczesny's going to renew, but he hasn't signed anything. So right now, it's a hot mess. Right now, all we know for sure is that Joan Garcia is signing for Barcelona. But from Alaska, that's pretty cool, by the way. I went to Alaska several years ago. I think 2015, if I'm not mistaken. I was in law school, and I went to a convention. I signed up. So when you're in law school, you get invited to conventions, and they're free. They're completely free. When you're a lawyer, you have to pay a shitload of money. But when you're a law student, they're completely free. They even cover your flight and your hotel. And I signed up for it. I applied. You have to apply. I got approved. They covered my flight. They covered my hotel. Showed up the first day to the convention. Signed my name on a signing sheet and left. I never did not attend the convention whatsoever. I was not there for the convention. I did not care about the convention. I was just there because I wanted to get to know Alaska. And it was honestly one of my favorite trips because Alaska is absolutely gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. I mean, some of the scenery, I was like, this is CGI. This is no way this is real. It's like so beautiful. So if anyone watching can make a trip to Alaska, I highly, highly recommend it. By the way, I went in the summer, so the sun would set like at midnight. It was the craziest thing, and it would come out like at 3 a.m. I'm like, what is going on? Like, that's crazy. I don't know how people do it like 24, like year round. Let's see. Javan says, I am not sure why Barca didn't go for Leroy Sané as a free transfer. Thoughts? Age and injury propensity. I think that's probably why. Gaming with Joel says, I must say, bring Perisic because he's a free agent and his salary is only 250K a week and he has a great form and can be a great off the bench backup player for either winger. We'll talk about Perisic in a little bit. I don't want to get ahead of myself. And Balangue says, Mo, do you think we should go for Garnacho? No, fuck Garnacho. Garnacho's all the shit that he talked about Barcelona and all the fun that he poked at Barcelona and Pedri and all that. No, fuck him. Alejandro says, please, I'm getting depressed. Rumors of Barca still going for 28-year-old Luis Diaz and 36-year-old, I think you mean Perisic, not Pulisic. Two different players. I love Daniolo, but still think 60 million was a waste with what we already have. Okay. I'm going to clarify the Perisic situation, but Luis Diaz, 85 million euros is a lot for him. But I don't know why people keep pretending that 28 is old. 28 is not old for a player, okay? 28 is prime years, okay? 20, like, players usually enter their prime years around 26, and it goes from like 26 to 29, around there. So what does that mean? What does prime years mean? That means that right now, Luis Diaz at 28 is displaying the best football he will ever display in his entire career, or his entire life. Okay. So 28 is not old. Okay. There's a lot of reasons to object to Luis Diaz's signing, but saying is old is not one of them because that simply is not factual. Okay. Remember, you know who else is 28 is Rafinha. Okay. So if Luis Diaz is old for being 28, that means Rafinha is also old for being 28. But 28 is not old. Okay. Those are prime years. This is the best football he's currently playing. Now, don't get me wrong. I still think we shouldn't sign Luis Diaz, but not because I think 28 is old. 28 is not old, because I just don't think 85 million euros for Luis Diaz is worth it, right? I just don't think that's too much money for him. Plus, like I said before, because Rafinha is the same age. Again, they're not old, but I just don't think signing two players for the same position that have the same age is wise, because then the two of them will age at the same time. That means the two of them will get old at the same time because they're not old right now, but they will be eventually old at the same time. That means you have to get rid of two players and replace two players at the same time for the same position. Versus it's better to have a player in his prime and a younger player. So when the player in his prime gets old, you could replace him with a young player and so on and so forth, right? But 28 is not old. Let's stop pretending that 28 is old. Anyways, let's talk about Ivan Perisic, because ladies and gentlemen, there have been heavy links between the Croatian winger and FC Barcelona. Now, I talked about this in a video, I think it was 2 days ago, about Ivan Perisic offering himself. Now, Perisic just ended a season with PSV Eindhoven. He's currently trying to, I think, extend his contract with PSV Eindhoven, if I'm not mistaken. But he has paused those negotiations and he has offered himself to Barcelona. He knows Barcelona are looking for a winger. So Perisic said, hey guys, I'm available. I'm willing to come as a free agent. I'm willing to come with a very low salary. And I'm even open to being a substitute. You don't have to start me. I'll take whatever you guys give me. So Perisic has offered himself. Okay. I made a video about this saying Perisic has offered himself. Since then, there have been a lot of articles. Oh, Barcelona want to sign Perisic. Flick likes Perisic. Perisic is a Barca player. He was spotted wearing a Barca jersey. He actually played last season, but he was wearing a mask, so nobody recognized him. All these crazy articles saying that Perisic is coming to Barca. And like I said in the previous video, I'll say it again. Perisic has offered himself, okay? That doesn't mean that Barcelona are looking to sign him. I'll repeat. Perisic has offered himself. It doesn't mean Barcelona are going to sign him. Mo, can technically offer myself to Barca. I can pick up the phone right now and say, hey, Barca, you want to sign me? That doesn't mean Barcelona going to sign me, okay? And I hope they don't, because God help the team if they sign me, okay? So just because a player offers himself doesn't mean that the club are going to sign him. Now, does Flick like Perisic? Yes, okay? Flick likes Perisic. I think the best year of Perisic in his entire career was that year that he played under Hansi Flick with Bayern Munich. So yes, Flick likes him. But does that mean Barcelona are looking to sign him? No. He's not a priority. He's not an option. Now, Barcelona would consider Perisic as a last resort. Last resort. Let's say summer transfer market is about to close and nothing has worked out. Nico Williams renewed with Athletic Club de Bilbao. Liverpool say no, we're not selling Luis Diaz. Marcus Rashford ends up going somewhere else. Lookman ends up going somewhere else. There's nobody left. Nobody left. Then Barcelona would consider the Perisic option as a last option. Now, there are some reports saying that Barcelona could consider Perisic kind of as a substitute, but not as a main signing, which I think that would be an okay option. I mean, he'll be a free agent. His salary is extremely low. So, I mean, to have him on a bench and come out and sub out Lamine in the last 20 minutes or sub out whoever we signed on the left wing, sure. But remember, he's not a priority. He's not number one option. This is simply the player offering himself. I cannot stress that enough. So, please, if you see articles, oh, Barcelona already signed Perisic. He was there. No truth to that. As of today, of course. Things could change, but as of today, the player has offered himself. Flick likes him, sure, but he's not on the priority list. All right, let's get back to the news. And then we are going to talk about Gerard Martin. Only Blaz says, hey, Mo, I wish someone told Guti to fix his hair when he was a bench warmer. Let's face it, he's just jealous that a kid is better than he was or more like Lamine is a Barca player. Yeah, come on. Lamine Yamal has in one toenail, not even one toe. In one toenail, Lamine has more skill than Guti ever had his whole career. So, of course, he's there like talking shit. By the way, all this hate coming from El Chiringuito tells you one thing and one thing only. They're scared. They are scared. They had Lionel Messi who wreaked havoc against them for 15 plus years. And he finally left. And they're like, yes, our nightmare left. Thank God. No more humiliations at the hands of Messi. And what happens? There comes Lamine Yamal. And they're like, fuck. We got rid of one nightmare, and there comes another one. And this one is 17 years old. So if he ends up playing until 35 at a highest level football, we're talking about another 18 years of suffering for Madridistas. So that's why they're pissed. They're scared. Junior says, Olmo played on the left wing when Barca were a player down. He covered that position better than Rafinha, and that's why they had got him at first. He plays left wing and false nine. We also have Dani Rodriguez. I don't know if Dani Olmo did a better job than Rafinha when he covered that position. I think that's a little bit of a stretch. I think I liked Olmo when he played as a false nine. Look, Olmo's he's a very talented player, but unfortunately, he's just not a player you can count on because, he's injured every other Sunday. That's the problem with Olmo. But, if he can stay healthy, I think Olmo would be a huge, huge help for the squad. And Jason says, I saw someone say that they didn't tell him because it wasn't a guarantee that Joan would come and he hadn't signed yet. What are your thoughts on this? Well, at some point, Barcelona decided that they were going to be done with Ter Stegen, right? And that's the point where they should have talked to him, I think. Because if Barcelona decided that they're done with Marc, that means someone else was going to be the goalkeeper, regardless of whether Joan Garcia would have said yes or no, right? So when you make the decision that, okay, Marc is done, that's when you have to talk to the player and be like, all right, you're done. Okay, we're going to try to bring Joan Garcia. Maybe it doesn't come, but you're done. It doesn't matter who we're bringing in, you're done. Right? And at some point, you have to tell him, But let's see. One more, and then we'll do the last bit of news. Gaming with Joel says, I must say bring Perisic because... Oh, wait, I already read this. Event says, Mo, it doesn't matter because Barca holds the bigger stick. Barca could bench Ter Stegen and force him to leave. Ter Stegen will go due to the 2026 World Cup. Actually, it's not that much big of a stick as people think. I've seen this a lot about people, saying, oh, he has the World Cup, so you could just. True. But let's not forget, Barcelona are still in a very precarious financial situation. Barcelona still have a very tight financial fair play to maneuver. And to bench a player that earns as much as Mark, that would be very costly for Barcelona. So yes, Barcelona have that ace under their sleeve where they could be like, dude, the World Cup is around the corner. If you want to play it, you better leave. But Mark could also say, I'm not leaving. And if you want to sign players, you need me out of here. So I'm not leaving. I'm staying, right? So he has his own ace under the card too, which is the financial fair play. So it's not as straightforward as it is. This is not like benching, I don't know, Pau Victor. Like, who cares? He earns like 2 peanuts. Doesn't matter. But benching someone like Mark, that's very expensive for the club. So it's not as straightforward as, the World Cup. But of course, that is a good play that Barcelona could use. But anyways, let's do the last bit of news, and then we'll do more comments. I promise. These podcasts keep getting longer and longer. I don't know what's going on with me. But anyways, let's talk about Gerard Martin, because he continues to attract more and more interest from the Premier League. Now, the last time we talked about Gerard Martin, I told you that Wolverhampton had declared interest in the Barcelona defender. And now another Premier League club has also declared interest in the player, and it's Bournemouth. Bournemouth are now also interested in Gerard Martin. And here's the kicker. Barcelona are not looking to sell Gerard Martin, but if they do, it would have to be either for 12 million euros or more. And guess how much Bournemouth are offering? Well, they're offering the 12 million euros. They're offering kind of like what Barcelona would be willing to consider for Gerard Martin. So far, 2 Premier Leagues interested in Gerard, Wolverhampton and Bournemouth. Flick completely counts on Gerard Martin. Barcelona are not looking to force Gerard Martin out. If he wants to leave, okay, fine. It's going to have to be at least 12 mil. If he stays, that's fine too, because Flick likes to count on him. So in other words, the ball is pretty much in Gerard Martin's court. It's got to be up to him if he wants to stay or if he wants to leave. If he wants to leave, he has options. If he wants to stay, Hansi Flick counts on him. So he has options at Barcelona as well. Now, if Gerard Martin, and I say if Gerard Martin because, again, Barcelona are not looking to push him out. If Gerard Martin decides, you know what, I want to try my luck out in the Premier League and decides to leave, again, Barcelona would request at least 12 million euros. And if Gerard Martin leaves and Barcelona get those 12 million euros, they would use it to activate the release clause of Grimaldo. Because, of course, Grimaldo, former academy player, he's looking to leave Bayer Leverkusen. They're saying his release clause is worth around 12, 15 million euros. So Barcelona would take the proceeds from the sale of Gerard Martin to activate Grimaldo's release clause, and they would bring him to the club. I honestly would rather keep Gerard Martin any day of the week. Let's not forget Grimaldo was just offering himself to Real Madrid time and time again. And when Real Madrid said, never mind, we're signing Alvaro Carreras, this guy came back crawling with his tail between his legs like, oh, I'm available to you, Barca. You know what? Fuck you. You can stay at Bayer Leverkusen. And I'd rather keep Gerard Martin, who, as we've seen, is a hard worker, someone who keeps his head down, works hard, takes whatever minutes Flick gives him, and he does whatever Flick asks him to. Anyways, let's get back to the news. No, not to the news. To the comments. What am I saying? Let's see. Where did we leave off? Mickey says players' prime starts at the age of 24 to 30. That's more like 26 to 29 or 25 to 29. That's more like the prime of players. From 30 years, I kept forward the highest level. Even if Diaz will cost us 50 mil, it's not a good idea to spend 50 mil. But players can still perform at the highest level at 30. I mean, especially with the advancements in medicine, in diet, nutrition sciences, even like exercising and workouts. And Ronaldo competed to what? He was 35 years old at the highest level. I'm saying Zlatan. How old was Zlatan when he left the big leagues? 36, 37. Players could compete at 30. They could definitely compete at 30. I think 34 is probably now when players are like, all right, you're like, hey, it's time to go to Saudi or MLS or whatever. I mean, look at Lewandowski. biologically speaking, they've done studies on him. And even though he's 36, about to be 37, his biological age is 30 because that's how good he is with his dieting, hydration, exercise, sleeping. Like he takes care of his body. And Lewandowski at 37 or 36, because he was 36 last season, he scored 42 goals. 42 at 36 in Barcelona, in La Liga, not in Saudi, not in the MLS. No, at 36, 42 goals. That's incredible. LeBron James, how old is LeBron? 37, 38? He's performing at the highest level. So that's not true that players cannot perform at 30. I would say for most, probably 34. Now, of course, there are the exceptions like Lewy and other players who can perform past that. I would think 34, maybe 32 if you're like a weenie. But 30, you can still perform at 30. Let's see. Edwin says, hey, Mo, what's the difference between a club paying a release clause versus paying a player a signing bonus? That's a free agent like Mbappe. It's a financial fair play. Look at it differently. I don't think it does. I think it still counts as a expenditure, but there is no amortization. So I think that would probably be the difference. Or maybe I'm not even sure if bonuses are amortized. But it definitely counts as a different kind of expense. When you pay a release clause is counted as a transfer fee, right? If you pay a club 70 million to take a player, it's the same as you pay 25 million, but in a release clause, it's kind of the same. Versus when you become a free agent and you pay the guy a signing bonus, that counts as a different kind of expense. Now, how does it affect the financial fair play? I'm not 100% sure. I know there's no amortization involved, so I'll look into it though. But that's a great question. That's a really, really good question. Thank you for bringing that up. Let's see. Barca Amani says, Mo, no way Barca are going to pay for 80 mil. No, they're not. That's not the plan. Luis Diaz still the number one option. Barcelona are not planning to pay 85 million for him. Barcelona will only sign Luis Diaz if he comes for less. And Barca Forever says left-wing alternatives. For me, Antonio Nusa, 100%. I think Antonio Nusa is definitely worth considering. That guy is a beast. Kinan Yildiz, Eberici Eze, Bade Ndoye. What do you think? Well, I'm not sure about the other names, to be honest. I haven't watched them play. But Antonio Nusa would be a great option. And Junior says people will comment, can't believe Barca want to sign Perisic. By the way, they already did. On the last video that I did, I was like, hey, Perisic offered himself. Barcelona are not interested. And lo and behold, there were comments. I can't believe Barcelona are going to sign Perisic. And I'm like, oh my God, here we go again. Anyways, that is all, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in, for your comments, your likes, your subscriptions, your donations. If you haven't hit the like button yet, make sure you do. It really, really helps the channel continue to grow. It prompts the algorithm to promote the channel to people who've never seen it. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do. If you haven't dropped a comment, make sure you do. I want to hear you guys' thoughts and opinions about all the news that I share with you today. I will see you in a video later tonight because there is another video coming. Yes, believe it or not. Don't forget to wait, already went over this. But anyway, I'll see you guys in the video. And as always, Visca Barça.